So why has Boris not sacked Dominic Cummings? The question, quite frankly, could be as who knows? Again, we say this a lot of the time on this channel. Who knows? We really don't know, but there is a lot of public anger, and you can see this as being actually quite palpable. And this feeds once again into the Johnson's days could be numbered because the public has turned against him, the Conservative Party has turned against him, and as we've said in the past, back when Theresa May was failing really badly, when the Conservatives smell blood in the water, they will bring out the knives and they will be starting to sharpen them. I guarantee you that will be starting to be happening behind the scenes now, but obviously they're on recess and plotting tends not to too much happen during this period. But once Parliament gets back into action, then there's a very real chance the knives will be out for Johnson. And of course, as in all revolutions, always remember they even came for Robespierre in the end. So today we're going to look at Miriam Hyde, who is, I think she's a really good writer on the Guardian, and she really lays into this. So it's her article from the Guardian, and it's the truth about why Cummings hasn't gone. Johnson is too terrified to sack him. Perhaps on Sunday you watched the entire nation being lectured on what constitutes fatherly responsibility by Boris Johnson, a man who hasn't even said how many children he has, yet leaves women to bring them up, an unspecified number of them. Perhaps on Monday you watched the Guardian's Roanna Mason being lectured in journalism by Johnson, a man sacked from a newspaper for fabricating quotes on his own godfather, and who blithely discussed helping a friend to have another journalist beaten up. Perhaps today you heard Michael Grove tell LBC he has, on occasion, driven a car to check his eyesight. These things that are trying to defend Cummings are just complete madness. So if you didn't see these things, I can only direct you to the slogan fly posted all over Paris during 1968. During the civil unrest, which said, "Do not adjust your mind, there is a fault with reality. The term gaslighting is much overused, but let's break the glass on it for the events of the past few days. As for indefensible, well, I don't think the word means what you thought it meant. Anyway, I see the latest science. Dominic Cummings knows more about than you is optometry. Half an hour late on Monday afternoon, like he's Mariah Carey, not some some spade inside out pantless. The Islington dwelling humanities graduate took to Downing Street Rose Garden. There, he delivered the most preposterous address to the nation since Tiger Woods stood in front of an audience, including his mother, and apologised to his wife and sponsors. The difference is that Woods had a problem with cocktail waitresses, while Cummings fucks the entire public health messages in the middle of a deadly pandemic. Also, he's not remotely sorry. By now, you must be dimly aware that his wife, showing coronavirus symptoms, saw Cummings first return to Downing Street, then embarked on what we might call an Odyssean project, a heroic 260-mile quest all the way to the County Durham, breaking the spirit and letter of the lockdown rules he helped to write. I guess he just wanted to be a rule maker, not a rule taker then. He explained he embarked on a 60-mile round trip to Bernard Castle with his child in the car to see if his eyes were so banjacked that to see if it was unsafe for him to drive, which is, but no, I'm sorry, I just can't get with that one. Maybe later. Hopefully he's at least nuked his car insurance premium. Apologies for having to get tough with a guy who's always cultivated an image of himself as a Roy Keane of Westminster, even if that's like being the Clint Eastwood of the DVLA. But if Cummings and his wife didn't know what they were doing was wrong, why would they choose to write a lengthy article last month about their virus experience, full of personal family information which admitted all of these dramas, all of these material facts, or, as Cummings addressed these questions of what is an irredeemable in the Rose Garden, he said, "I stress to people that they should not believe everything in the newspapers, and that I stress to people that by far the most inaccurate account of the period in question was in The Spectator, bylines by Mary Wakefield and Dominic Cummings. As for his quandrous domestic exceptionalism, you'd think they were in the first parents ever to get properly ill in possession of children, or child in this case. God knows it's not much fun, but dare say millions of us, it's the kind of thing that you sign up for when you're a parent." And I really lost it on the ICU nurse couple I heard on the radio explaining both of them being hard hit by COVID-19 and helping to isolate with their own 3 children without help. Cummings, the university history tutor, Cummings' university history tutor once described him as something like a Robespierre, determining to bring down things that don't work. 5 years after his revolution, Robespierre himself was deemed to be something that didn't really work, and was brought down to emphasize the business of being relieved of in front of your head by an ecstatic mob. I must say that I found the footage of Cummings being screamed at in the street on the Sunday directly describing when he sent along his family account, his account of his family's house having become target of threats and violence is never right. Part of what's disturbing was when the vignette of a Britain Cummings himself did much to foment. A grimly polarised, reflectively aggressive, and running with an undercurrent of menace. His crowning triumph, the successful campaign to leave the EU, was a masterclass of stoking the exploited divisions, unpleasant emotive half-truths of untruths, and he evidently considered himself above the law. I wrote last year about the dangerous folly of whipping people up versus parliamentary narratives, and how quickly those who might imagine themselves on that side of the people can suddenly be reclassified as the enemy politician. You may remember that because we went over that last year, and it's quite accurate to this day. Go check that video out, definitely. It's coming quite true. Where are we? But I wouldn't have even thought of it too neat, too written for Cummings to find himself on the wrong end of his sorcery as quickly as he has been. The thing about playing to angry mobs is that eventually they get angry with you, and they come for Robespierre in the end too. For all the draw of Cummings' character, though, the last few days are ultimately a terrible story about Johnson's "wash your hands and wash your hands" the Prime Minister kept gibbering last night. He's certainly washing his hands of it all. All populists secretly hate the people, and Johnson is no different. But that secrecy is key. His decision to keep Cummings brings his contempt for those who he's meant to serve into the open. He would rather endanger their lives by compromising a vital public health strategy. But why? The thing about Johnson is that he desperately wanted to become Prime Minister, and he desperately wanted to have been Prime Minister. It's just the bit in between that he struggles with. With Othello, it was a jealousy, Macbeth ambition, Lear pride, Johnson a career liar, hollowed out by narcissism, who will not even his friends would joke was motivated by public service. I guess it's the little things that trip you up, isn't it? Anyone who imagines his defence of Cummings is born of loyalty is unfamiliar with the concept Boris Johnson. This is actually a simple story. A man with no ideas is terrified to sack the man with ideas. Or, to put it in a complex intellectual terms, it deserves some street heckler once shouted at David Hasselhoff, "Oi, Hasselhoff, you're nothing without your talking car." Cummings is the talking car to Johnson's Hasselhoff. So here we are. Cummings stays, and the only irresistible external events will make Johnson do the right thing, hopefully. He is not himself capable. We have the highest death toll so far in Europe, with the left, with the left care homes. We left the care homes to their fates, and our test and trace blunders are an international embarrassment. We don't even have, we didn't even save our economy. Johnson takes daily runs and appears only once or twice a week in a crisis that his leadership has helped to lead. Oh, there we go. This is the utter smallness of a man and a tragedy for everyone else stuck behind the government by him. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is acceptance. It would be nice to think that we're not so beaten, that we don't expect better, and that what he's given us. After all, lives literally depend upon it. I'd like to echo exactly what she said there in the article. Even during the French Revolution and Robespierre's main part in all that, in leading up to the French Revolution, and he's the main lead figure, what was the one thing that eventually took Robespierre? It was his own revolution he helped to create.